What's good, people around the world? It's a boy did reviews, and today we have got the Aristocats, a 1970 American animated romantic adventure musical comedy. A romantic adventure musical comedy? Wow, that's a genre all in one. Film produced by Walt Disney Productions and released by Buona Vista Distribution. It's the 20th Disney animated feature film in the Disney canon, and the film is loosely based on a story by Tom McGowan and Tom Rowe. And the film kind of is about these cats. Yeah. When a retired opera singer leaves her inheritance to a cat duchess, voiced by Ava Gabor and her three kittens, the woman's butler drugs the cats and abandons them into the countryside in order to inherit the fortune for himself. Lost in unfamiliar territory, Duchess and her kittens meet Thomas O'Malley, voiced by Phil Harris, an alley cat willing to help them return to their home in Paris. They meet several kooky characters along the way, including two English geese and an alley cat jazz band. But can they make it back to their home? Well, I'll let you find out yourself, to be honest with you. And this film, in 1962, the Aristocrats began as an original script for a two-part live-action episode of Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color. And it was developed by writers Tom McGowan and Tom Rowe and producer Harry Title. And following 2 years of rewrites, Walt Disney suggested the project would be more suitable for an animated feature film and placed the project in turnaround as The Jungle Book advanced into productions. When The Jungle Book was nearly completed, Disney appointed Ken Anderson to develop primarily work. I can't say that word properly, on the Aristocrats, which would mark the last project to be approved by Walt Disney before his death in December 1966. And The Aristocrats was released on December 11th, 1970, positive reviews, and was a box office success. It did pretty damn well at the box office. And, what do I kind of think about this film? Well, honestly, I don't mind the visual look. I kind of like the backgrounds. This is my positives of the film. The backgrounds are quite interesting. It is set in France, and I do like the look of it. Personally, the backgrounds have this very distinct look to where it kind of reminds me a little bit of 101 Dalmatians, because this was during the Xerox era, and the backgrounds kind of had a sketchy outline, and I think it works for like the environment. I mean, it works, and I really do like it, Some of the scenes in like the mansion look absolutely amazing and beautiful, and I absolutely love the look of it. And honestly, the character animations of the cats are pretty well done actually. I quite like it. The animal characters are all really nice to look at, and yeah, they're pretty great. And the music, the soundtrack, I quite like it. It's very jazzy, it's very upbeat. I do like that freaking evil butler guy this guy is evil, but he's the only character who is somewhat interesting. And that's my main negative with this film, is that none of the characters are that great. I mean, yeah, Duchess and Tom O'Malley, they're pretty cruel. Then you've got like the kittens, they're great, but they're not memorable characters, They're not characters who I'm always gonna remember, who I'm gonna like look back and be like, I remember those guys. I like those guys. No, they're kind of boring, And I have to admit this, but this is kind of during the era where Disney animation started to kind of like, in terms of their quality of animation, just like it wasn't as great, I mean, this was the Xerox era, and yeah, these movies did do well at the box office, I will say that. But they weren't like legendary classics in a way. Like, this is kind of the beginning of the dark era of Disney, like the dark age, like the bronze age of Disney animation, basically. It is kind of like during the time when it kind of started after Walt Disney's death, and it kind of began with the Aristocrats, and it ended with Little Mermaid. And the Dark Age or the Bronze Age of Disney is where there were not as many critically or financially successful animated films, unlike the films Walt Disney produced and directed himself. And yeah, while these films would take longer and longer to make due to new, unexperienced animators being employed, and that said, most of these films were financially successful at the box office, and few films were even nominated for several awards. The Rescuers was quite popular during this era, but yeah, these movies, like, yeah, personally, no one goes and looks at this era as like the legendary era, because this is kind of the era where people kind of forget about these films, or they didn't make a standpoint in the world. They did well at the box office, but they weren't popular with people. People would just kind of forget about them. I would say the only films that was somewhat like, popular was The Rescuers. And I do have some of my favorites like Robin Hood and the Winnie the Pooh film. But I have to admit, this era was kind of a bit of a drag. And I'll probably talk about, the dark age of this era later on. Yeah, despite favorable reviews and solid box office performance, the film did not match the success of the past Disney films such as 101 Dalmatian. Because of this, the film is seen as a modest success in the Disney canon, but it's still iconic in a way. And many, many, many other films were also kind of like, meh, in this era. But yeah, this is a meh film. Character animation is pretty great. Background's unique, but it just doesn't have a interesting look. The colors are really muted in this film, to be honest with you. They don't look that, like, I don't know. Is it me, or do they just look kind of dull looking, like the colors? They don't have that niceness that the original Disney films had. But thank the Lord that Disney, kind of went back on top and became much better. But honestly, go check this film out. But I'm definitely going to give this film a C minus. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I know. It's a bit of a poor choice to give it. But it's a film I don't think I'll ever rewatch again because it's kind of boring and forgettable. But I do come back to it sometimes if I want to get some animation inspiration when I do my animation work. But yeah, thanks for watching this review. Please like and share this video and comment down below and tell me what's your favorite Disney flick. With that said, thank you for watching. As always, a boy reviews signing out.